my specialty is like marketing, so fractional marketing. I started as just, mostly like digital marketing and like B2C space in like 2019. And then I quickly realized that just marketing by itself isn't the whole picture. So I'm like, how do you align the company's strategy, align sales, align operations, align all, all the different functions in the company to align better with marketing? And so that's kind of why I started doing more fractional marketing engagements, just for more efficiency, because I got frequently frustrated because there was this invisible silo with marketing where we'd see different challenges in other areas of the business and they'd be like, well, you're just marketing, so just do your thing, just run more ads. And so I was like, that's not I don't like that. Because my goal is results, right? And so if I see some, if I had that strategic capacity or able to talk with the C-suite, like, hey, this is like a simple thing that if we fix this, for example, like a website, like, hey, the website page speed low, page speed is super slow, let's get the tech team and talk to them and like work on this stuff, instead of like, you're not doing your job, you're not running enough ads, so it's like looking at the whole picture.
Well, when you typically come into, let's say, new engagement, right, then is it you offer some sort of like a standardized like offer? Do you have anything that is specific, or everything is pretty unique to the company depending on like what's their problem?
Yeah, so there's kind of like a framework that I use, and a lot of it, and what's funny is that sometimes people don't want the framework, but usually when they end up working through it, they realize that it's helpful. And the first part of that is identifying like their core, avatar. Like a lot of companies are just kind of marketing to a whole bunch of people, and even successful companies can just market to like people who aren't necessarily qualified or the best customers, but really getting clear on that ideal customer. And from there, you can create better offers and messaging for that customer. And it's pretty straightforward stuff. And most companies are like, oh, I don't need this, we already know this stuff. But going through that process can be very helpful. And especially, talking with past customers, talking with the best customers, doing case studies, and actually having data-driven decisions about like, hey, these are the best people, these are the industries, these are like the whatever it is. There's usually some core factors that are like, oh, we keep on seeing this pattern. And so identifying that, and then from there, revamping the messaging. Usually a lot of my clients run some sort of paid advertising to get top of funnel traffic. And so once you know the exact person that you're trying to reach, it's making messaging that really appeals to those core needs and doing it in a non-boring way. A lot of times, business owners are like very, they think their product's amazing just because they love it. But bridging that gap between like the perceived, like the owner is like, oh, our value is up here, but the perceived value for the audience is down here. So like bridging that gap with effective messaging and stuff. And then there's a bit of the next step is kind of operations and systematizing and making it all work together, making sure the CRM is working with the lead, making sure the tech stack is working. And I'm not much of I'm not the techiest of people. So usually there's an internal team that I work with, but I know the kind of vision that we have and where things got to go. And so those are kind of my main process, checkpoints.
So Ben, I got a follow-up question for you. And the question is, for those people who are just starting out, so maybe they don't have a lot of customers, or maybe they have 0 customers. How would you approach that from a marketing perspective and helping them identify their avatars? Since a lot of what you do is data-driven, how do you determine it if they don't have customers yet?
That's a good question. Usually there's communities. It's like where you have the most affinity or the most trust or the most expertise is usually where I would look. So if, let's say they just came from a background in like software or something, like, and they have a ton of connections with like, the tech companies, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google and stuff. I think, is there a way you can leverage especially let's talk in a fractional capacity. You can absolutely leverage your expertise if you're coming from one of those companies and say like, hey, I was like, the guy who managed Amazon's email list or something, or a component of that. Let's pivot that into like, let's, unlock Amazon's secrets of email marketing and put it into your business, sort of a thing. And I know a lot of people that have, that are, ex Amazon or ex Google, whatever, and they use their experience at those jobs basically to say, hey, like, if I succeeded here, and I can definitely help you succeed because I know like all these different, strategies that are pretty high level. Like, it's not the easiest to get a job at those companies. So that's one way.
I guess what I'm curious about is like, marketing is a lot. What you were talking about is getting the message in front of the right people. Yeah. And if I don't have any customers and I'm just starting out and I'm not exactly sure who my right people are, how are you going to help me identify who those people are? How do we figure that out if we don't have data, we don't have any business yet?
Especially take like two of us, for example, fractional CTOs, right? Like, let's say we used to run technology at the company, right? And we know how technology works, but we don't really know how marketing works necessarily, right? Because we didn't really need to sell ourselves on the market, right? And what would be, I guess, the approach for people like us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess a hypothetical would be you have a skill set in one certain area. I really do feel like it's where you have skill set where you want to spend your time working and looking at that. There's that personal aspect, because you could do stuff that's like technically marketable or sellable, but if you hate it, it's not going to work long term. So I feel like there's that before you even like start trying to market, is be like, is this something that I actually want to do and actually want to invest my time in as a business or fractional person?
Sure.
And then I would honestly have a lot of conversations with people in my network. Like, hopefully, at least a handful of people, or people, at your former companies and stuff. And I've gotten clients just by talking to them and being like, what did you think? Or talking to people that I know and being like, what if, you've maybe seen some of the projects or things that I've done. What do you think that I am good at? Or what did you like about, working on this project together or whatever? And so kind of doing your own research, just asking questions, I guess informational interviews, you might call them, with people. And you could ask questions, especially if it's people that have worked with you in the past. Like, it could be ex-employers, people, people you've worked with, and just kind of ask them and get a sense of like, because you'll see things, they'll know things about you that you don't know about you. And so when you ask them those questions, like, oh, what was it like working with me? What did where did you think we like really hit it out of the park? Or what were some strengths, what were some weaknesses? Getting that outside perspective can be really helpful. And that is kind of qualitative, so you don't necessarily have like strong data. It's more kind of like, people's perspectives, but it does kind of help potentially move the direction where maybe people are like, your email strategy was really good, or and you kind of have that idea. And then you just look for businesses that have those pain points. So I think a lot of, and that can literally be asking people like, hey, do you know anyone? Joining groups, so if there's a certain, like, Drew and I are part of Fractionals United. That's not necessarily the best place to find clients, but there are jobs and different opportunities that come through. And so I feel like networking is a key part of it, especially if you have good contacts and stuff. It's like, if you haven't talked to at least a good number of your contacts, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because you never know what. So I look at it, to make it even more simple, as like a reverse funnel. So the funnel's like cold, warm, hot. You want to start with like the hot people, who know, trust, and like you first. And that's like an easy in. Like, hey, I'm looking in these new opportunities. I have some ideas. What do you think? Quick conversation. I'll buy you a coffee, lunch, whatever. And then you can kind of go to warm people, maybe who you haven't talked with, or you think they might be in kind of a similar industry, maybe people on LinkedIn or whatever, just shooting some messages out. But that's one way to go. The way that I went is I was just like, I'm just going to launch marketing, and I'm going to cold call people and send cold emails. And it really sucked. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to anyone. But that's how I got started. And so there's a lot of trial and error, but I feel like building in a group is a lot easier than just building things solo. And then I got a co-founder, and then things started moving a lot faster as well. But
tell us more about the co-founder experience for you.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. So for co-founders in general, like just having buy-in, I guess, is important, and having like a clear why. Like, why are you a co-founder? And in the beginning, so I found my co-founder. He was someone who worked on another project that we were both working on that was not related to it was related to marketing, but it wasn't like my marketing, agency project. And I forget, I think our project ended, and so we were doing our own things. And he was like, hey, I feel like we could really do a lot together, because he had an idea of like what working with me was like, sort of a thing. So it was kind of like that, already had that connection or relationship. And then, we were just talking and stuff, and he's like, hey, I could help. And so this was in 2020, January 2020. And he was really interested in like kind of outreach, and like he was really good at like learning about influencers in different niches and stuff. And so that kind of became the niche that we went after, because he like knew all of these influencers who had products, whether they were like coaching products or like, different digital products and stuff. And so he was kind of like more of a connector person. And he liked doing outreach, and I did not like doing outreach. I forced myself to do cold calls and cold emails, and I hated every second of it. I can do it better now, but it's not the most enjoyable thing. He didn't mind sending like Loom videos. Everyone sends Loom videos as outreach now. It's like super played out and kind of annoying. But back in 2020, not a ton of people were doing that. And so he would just send out really strategic targeted Loom videos. He'd build like a deck and stuff. And so he's like very organized. And so that's how we actually got some very big clients. We were just sending cold email, Loom video. And so he kind of took what I was doing, which was like mediocre outreach, and made it really good outreach. And we started getting more calls with large, like for us, large 7-figure clients. And so we signed our first large client in March of 2020. And it was like crazy good, because this was before Facebook got destroyed by iOS 14 updates. So you could still target like crazy and get insane. It was just a money printing machine. And so, this client had a ton of traffic to their website. They had proven offers and stuff. And it was really just, they were launching a new product. And they provided a lot of the creatives. So it was really a layup. Like, they just wanted someone to run the ads and just make sure that things were going well. And so we made him probably, it was definitely 6 figures within 30 days in terms of sales. And with like an ad budget of like maybe, like not that much. Like the returns were basically 10x. So, that's pretty good math of $1 in, $10 out for ads.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like one of the lessons that you've learned, and I think one of the lessons for our listeners, is to find partners that you can partner with and work with, and people who complement you. You may not be a great marketer, or like Ben, you may be a great marketer, but you have your specialty and you're not good at a certain aspect. Finding people that you can work with, and maybe it's not a co-founder relationship where you have like a legal agreement in place, but there's all sorts of different revenue sharing models that you can put in place to work with other people. And as fractionals, that makes a lot of sense, because we are fractional ourselves, partnering with people, working together, where you can really specialize in what you're good at. And I think that's a key advantage of how do you stand out in a crowded market, which happens to be a big part of our topic today. Is as more and more people are turning into the fractional space, and particularly in the tech space. We have Sergey on with us today. I'll let him introduce himself here in a minute. And we're both technical people, and the tech market is crowded right now because there's been a lot of layoffs in big companies and people just getting fed up and leaving their companies. So Sergey, would you like to introduce yourself for our audience?
Oh yeah. Hello everyone. Like Drew mentioned, that I spent majority of my life in like a half of my life, I would say, in tech. I started as a software engineer in the beginning, then moved my way into like operations, was running servers. Then later on, I went to HBO and did some database work. And there was this interesting time where we built infrastructure for Game of Thrones. That was kind of interesting experience. But then that ended, and I got approached by a founder from Colorado, and he had an idea, a fintech idea, startup idea, needed some help. So I morphed into that and spent a lot of time there building SaaS company in a fintech world, which something I never did before. But then at this point, like maybe 6 months or so ago, I started looking into those fractional roles, just trying to expand my expertise and apply my expertise to maybe something else out there. And as you probably all know, as you kind of like work in the same place for a long time, you kind of lose the like a sort of a peripheral vision, I would say. You don't you don't know how your skills stand on the market, and especially on a leadership position or management position. You kind of, it's hard sometimes to even like measure like your work in a sense, because you like, you're always in between of like either like CEO and your tech team and product, and you sort of help this train to move, technology train and sort of like the product train. But at the end of the day, you sometimes ask yourself, what am I really doing, and what are my strong sides? So I guess for me, going fractional is like, it helps to validate my own skills and work with interesting people and companies. I get some like a bit of a fresh air, which is important.
Yeah, I think that I can speak to that as well from an engineering perspective. Those of us who are engineers, a lot of us are very challenge motivated. We like change. We like seeing what's around the next horizon. We like exploring, new technologies and new things. And what is difficult sometimes is you get specialized in a certain area and you get bored. I don't know how else to put it in a nice way, but as engineers, we get bored easily. So I think one of the challenges that people have in moving to the fractional world from corporate is the, hey, this is going to be exciting because I'm going to get something new all the time. So I think that's sort of a trend, is like, I can just work with new companies. And like maybe what I've seen in corporate America has been a lot of, and I've heard a lot of other leaders talk about this from the technical space anyhow, is you're at a company for a year to 6 years, and just depends. And things change in the market and the company and the leadership, and you're out. And so, whether it's out because you're bored or
Right.
you're frustrated or just things are beyond your control. So in the corporate world, it seems like, at least from my experience, there's not as much stability as we like. So people will shift to, hey, I'm going to take control of this.
Yeah. And I feel like that's probably the greatest point that you brought up, right? We all want some sort of like stability, control of how we're gonna do things like where if you just at the company, you basically today everything goes good, tomorrow, you're at the meeting and half of the company gets laid off, and you're like, what? And you're on the street suddenly, everything changed, and
right.
yeah, you have nothing. You realize like, whoa,
Right.
hold on, I thought I'm so smart, but hold on, there's so many smart people out there. I thought I'm the smartest. Oh, jeez. And then you suddenly kind of like start living in a new reality almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think as our listeners are looking to become fractional or looking to learn more about fractional, what does that transition look like? How do you become successful as a fractional leader? And as we were talking about in the beginning here, or before we got on with our audience, there was a discussion about sort of a trend among Ben and Sergey where, hey, I had a client, particularly Ben was talking about this, where I had a need, I had a client, I had something that I was doing. And I've heard that from a lot of fractional leaders is you kind of put yourself out there and you have something to get you started in this world of doing work. And I was listening to a book the other day. I thought this was really interesting. It was $1 Million Consulting was the name of the book. And this consultant who has been doing it for 20 years, who's super duper successful, he talked a little bit in the book about how he started. And he said, I started doing sort of odd jobs and things that nobody else wanted to do. And that's how I got started doing this. And so I think a lot of times the fractional space to become a fractional leader, at least in my mind, is idealized. Like, oh, it's going to be wonderful. I'm going to get called in. I'm going to have lots of business. I'll make tons of money. I'm going to work less and control my hours. And I'm going to just go into these companies and they're going to immediately trust me and listen to everything that I have to say. And whether or not they followed my advice or not, I'm going to get paid and it's going to be awesome. Has anybody else experienced that? Like that illusion of like, this is how it's going to be?
It's a truly irresistible offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of idealized in the minds of those who pursue it, that's what it's going to be like. In reality, I don't think, and I'm going off script a little bit here, I don't think that's really how it is. I think that we have to start small. And there's a saying, it says, use what you have to get what you want. So as Ben, I know you've talked about before, it's important to use your existing network, to use those warm leads, to use those relationships that you have in place to really kind of get yourself going, to start making some money. And then as you have more data, just like in engineering, when you have some data to analyze, then you can make some informed decisions about what's working well for you and what's not. Fire your lowest performing clients or your lowest paying clients or your most pain in the butt clients, and continue to move upward. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think that starting is hard. It's a lot harder than we let on.
Right. And especially as engineers, I feel like we have a tendency to overthink, overcomplicate. We suddenly go into things like, oh, hold on, like I need a website. I need to start with website. And then you go into those exciting realms. Oh, like which website do I need? Oh, hold on. Like what? Like is it WordPress? Should I host there? Or should I build my own? Oh, hold on. AI came out. Maybe I build some with it. Then you spend like 6 months. I certainly spend a lot of time just feeling and making it perfect. Just like, oh, what do I put on? And then like time goes on, you're doing all of those little activities instead of just getting out of there and just talking to your network and saying, hey, like you don't even need a website, to be honest. In a lot of those cases, if you already work with some of the people, you deliver the results and you just have to get yourself out there. But this is something new that you never did before and gives you this biggest amount of resistance, right? It's just,
right. Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. and you have to become somebody else in a way, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's important as leaders, whether you're running your own SaaS business, you're becoming a fractional CTO, you're becoming a fractional whatever. It's important in business to get results and get results early and often, and then adjust those results. You know, we do have a tendency to get into this analysis paralysis sort of view, like, well, maybe even you're looking at your avatar. Well, who is my avatar? What do I do? How do I figure that out? I don't know who to talk to. You got to start somewhere. And I think that
Yeah.
I feel like a motivational speaker today.
Books, podcasts, you go in there, and there's so
much information.
Opinions, like, oh, this guy told me this, but hold on, the other guy told you the opposite. And you're like, hold on. Like, I just spent 3 months in this ecosystem. Now this guy says something else. And you're like, oh, and then in the end, you end up with nothing. Time goes by and you're not moving. You still have zero. And
you got to move. You got to push. You got to do something. On the site's perspective, my SaaS business was a CMS at the core at the beginning. So, when I started doing the fractional business, I knew I needed a new site, and I wasn't going to use my old software because it's written in a dead language, and that was too long ago. But nevertheless, I had built a CMS platform that was better than WordPress, and I had these high expectations. Well, to be successful, what I did just to get something out the door is I found the simplest, easiest solution for me, and that may be different for you. And I just started publishing stuff, just started getting a site open. I had a blog, and I started using the blog, and just start posting stuff, just start getting something out there. It doesn't have to be perfect right away. This podcast is certainly not perfect, but we're just starting out. Over time, it'll get better the more you do it. Just like anything, the more you do something, the better it's going to get. Don't get caught up in the minutia and the details and get stuck, because it's easy to do.
Yep. And a lot of time, I feel like we have this tendency to think that we don't have time. Hold on, like I don't have time for this. Look how busy I am. But like if you really analyze what do you actually do, like if something, like let's say a problem comes up, you readily jump into this problem to solve it, to just get away from this pain of doing something new that you never did before. You just readily jump and find those issues. Oh, someone sent me email, I need to respond. Oh, I don't know, my garden hose broke, and then you went outside to fix it. There's some, like you look for those distractions almost just because, like, to do something important it's hard, and we need to come up with this process that allows you to make little steps every day. I guess book a little bit of time, find it in your schedule, protect this time to actually work on moving your business forward, right? Like you have to like do something, either like you maybe write a blog post or reach out to somebody. Do something within that time frame. If you do it every day, something happens. Even like we're sitting here right now, it's also a result of our actions, right? Like we spoke, like Drew and I spoke on this Slack channel, and then we made a connection, and now we sit and talk, and maybe someone else will see us. There's going to be something that's like a ripple effect almost, right? But like if we were just doing our normal jobs, none of it would happen, right? So it's
I think that's a really good point. And one of the key transitions, I guess, from job or corporate to being on your own, being a fractional or consultant, is that kind of self-management is key, and avoiding. I really like what you were saying, Sergey, about the website. Like, oh, should I use WordPress? Should I use AI? What about the best tool? I think we've all experienced that at some point to some degree or another. And it's really easy to get distracted because it's something you've never, or if you're just starting out, it's something you haven't done before. You don't know the rules of the game, and no one really says what are the rules of the game. And there's a lot of, people who are like, you got to have a website, you got to have this. It's all about, creating content, or it's all about direct outreach. Like everyone's got their own thing. that they think is the roadmap. But the fact of the matter is that what worked for one person may not work for another person. It really depends.
And you feel productive at that moment. That's the interesting part. You feel like you're doing something, like, oh, you're building a website. You sort of like letting yourself off the hook a little bit, because you produce, like, look, I'm building the website. So like, what do you expect? Like, I need to finish it. And then you sort of, instead of just reaching out again, finding the client, talking to them, engaging these people, you tell to yourself that you're producing, when in fact you're doing really not much.
Yeah, it's this idea of like being in motion. Like you can be on a treadmill and you're like moving a lot, but you're not actually progressing, like assuming you wanted to move somewhere. But like if you got off the treadmill and you started moving, yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. And what I try to use is looking at KPIs and critical drivers. So KPIs are like your key performance indicators. That's like your scoreboard, for the week, or however often you want to check it. You can check it daily, but like weekly is nice. Where you're like, how many messages did I send? How many conversations did I have? And so building your own funnel of sorts, where it's like, I have this big network. How many people in that network have I talked to? How many people are like messaging me? That sort of thing. And you don't necessarily need to track that granularly. You can track like bigger items. Like my goal is 7 calls booked a week or something like that. Did I get those 7 calls? Did I not get those 7 calls? If I don't track it, I have no idea. And I can say, well, I spent all my time building a website, but did I actually move things forward? So there's the KPIs, and there's also the critical drivers, which are kind of the more upstream actions that drive the KPIs. So if it's like, I need to book meetings, how many people am I reaching out to? How many people am I adding on LinkedIn? How many connections? There's a whole bunch of different things, but just kind of getting your own founder operating system set up where you're like, these are the core things that I need to work on. And as long as I'm tracking them and I'm working on these core actions, I can know that even if it takes weeks or months or however long it takes, that at least I'm moving in the right direction. And that's the key thing, is having that compass. At least that's what I found for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, as fractional executives, it's our job to set the strategy and to help companies execute that strategy. So that's what we do for our clients. We have to do that for ourselves too. We have to have some self-care, if you will, and hold ourselves accountable, have measurables, have the KPIs in place, work towards those. You can read 20 books a week, but if you're not applying any of that knowledge and executing any of that, then is it really going to do you any good? I don't know. I try to practice the habit of, I'll read a little or listen to a podcast or whatever, get a little knowledge, and then I'll go act on that knowledge and I'll see what happens. Learn a little, act. And I love the KPIs discussion. That's phenomenal. As engineering leaders, we all should be, those of us who are in the engineering space. I just say that because Sergey is with us today as a technical leader as well. And that's where my mind is. We are intimately familiar with KPIs to measure the performance of product and engineering. And, are we releasing code on a regular basis? Are we reducing the number of bugs that software has? Are we enhancing uptime? Are we reducing customer churn? Those are KPIs that we deal with on a regular basis, whereas we need to figure out what those KPIs are for us as fractional leaders in our business. And I think, Ben, you had some great ones there that we can apply to our actions. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. And I wanted to share something and just have a quick discussion with the guys here, just to see if they've encountered this tool. I had used this tool once before, and I thought it was okay. But then I was working with somebody helping me with lead generation in my business, and I was a little confused about, that frustration that I said at the beginning. Well, who are my clients? Who is my ideal avatar? And how do I get in front of that person? And so he was like, well, have you used Grok before? And I was like, yeah, I think I have. So he was like, well, go to Grok right now and share your screen and ask it a question and do a deep search on who is, start asking it some questions. And what Grok will do for you is it'll do this deep web search, and it takes a little while for it to return results because it iterates through them. And it gave me this phenomenal analysis about where to find my avatar and how to market to my avatar. And what I discovered was the same thing that people I get on calls with who are interested in giving me referrals are telling me. You need to do this specific thing, and this is going to be the most effective thing. And I kept ignoring that because it wasn't something that I really was comfortable doing. I wasn't like super excited about doing this particular method, but I just wanted to share that with the audience and bring it up with these guys to see if they've used that tool. So guys, I'll just ask the question. Have you used Grok before for research?
No,
I have not.
You have not. Okay.
I just did my own, like a combination, I would say, like of just searching in, I don't know, Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and Slacks and Discord forums, like some sort of variation of just sources, and a little bit of ChatGPT. Just try to, like, I use ChatGPT lately just to sort of like as a soundboard, you would say. You can, it's kind of weird how it works, but it's give you this quiet space of just interacting with the machine, and it just helps you like kind of fine-tune your thinking a little bit. So that's
well, let me share the results that I got. This is just part of the results, but I'm going to share my screen here just for a second. And what I was asking about is how do I find CEOs of SaaS companies? Because that's what I was interested in. So let me adjust this so that it's a little easier to read. So this is what I returned. Key points. It gave me the summary. It gives me references. So these are all like live links. I moved this over to a Google document because it's just a little bit easier. Finding CEOs of SaaS companies. You can go to conferences, and that's what it kept telling me is go to conferences. You can look in these places for this information. You can look at recently funded SaaS companies, and here's a website that you could, help you with that, and so on and so forth. I was asking it how to, position myself and my my results. So I'm going to scroll through this really quickly, and then we're going to go down to the bottom. And this is what I thought was really insightful. Okay, so it gave me different strategies, and that's what I asked it to do. What are the strategies? And it put it in this chart for me, this spreadsheet. Here's the strategy, here's the effectiveness, here's the effort level, and here's the notes. I was like, holy moly, this is extremely useful. So it's almost like using Grok as a tool. It almost gives me a coach that can help me do the things that I want. And then it gives us all its citations of all the websites that it's been to. So then I can go to these and I can dig in deeper. But I just thought I'd share that because it was extremely helpful to me. And I think it might be helpful to our audience when you're doing research and trying to figure out what to do next. I mean, you definitely have to know how to use these AI tools effectively, how to prompt them effectively, you have to know enough about yourself and what you're really asking. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was insightful. I thought it was useful. Maybe other people can leverage that as well. But Grok is the website. I can leave it in the description of this podcast, so you can go straight there. But I just want to share that just as an effective tool for me. So I think we're about out of time. Key takeaways, guys. What are your key takeaways from today?
Well, for me, I would say it's the constant action, daily, little, consistent action that actually makes all of the difference, right? As long as you especially like I also spent a lot of my time playing sports, and especially younger growing up, like that's where I felt like I saw how your training transition to performance in the game. So like a lot of, like even with my kid right now, I sort of like coaching him a little bit, but I see that he gets nervous in games a lot. And what I tell him is just, you have to focus on your training preparation and daily preparation over there on that side. Then you don't need to worry as much about your performance, because it's sort of like a result of your training. You train hard, and then the game becomes easy, right? So it's sort of kind of similar in my mind. It's just like you do your work, and you don't worry necessarily about the result. The result will come. Like I already see, it's like even with little action that I do right now, it's already getting somewhere. So I guess it's working in a way. And I guess the second takeaway is overthinking. That's the very dangerous, I think, for engineers in particular. You gotta just stop somewhere and say, this is enough, and focus on what's important. Those are two for me.
Okay, great, thank you. How about you, Ben?
Those are awesome. I agree with both of those. Those could easily be my takeaways. I guess my own version would be, yeah, like in over-indexing towards action for sure. This is kind of what Sergey was talking about. But it's very easy. Even though I'm not an engineer, I feel like I have similar challenges the engineers have of the overthinking and overanalyzing things. I want to do the best. If I'm going to do something, I want to do the absolute best thing. And so over-indexing towards action rather than perfection. And so, that could look like whatever, our podcast that we have today. We don't have a professional studio. We're just on, Google Meet. Like there's a whole bunch of things where my perfectionist brain is like, this could be a lot better. At the same time, it's way more important just to take those shots, because that's ultimately what's going to move things forward. So, sending a proposal that maybe isn't, I mean, I'm not advocating doing like bad business practices, but like if you have a choice between, this is my second thing. This isn't something we talked about, but I wanted to mention is that time expands like a gas. I heard this from Layla Hormozy, and I really agree with it. To the container that's put in. So if it's like, I'm going to give myself a month to do 5 outreaches, it will take a month to do 5 outreaches. If you say, I'm going to give myself a day to do 5 outreaches, you can likely do that. And so that's the other thing, is over-index towards action, and time is like a gas. And so compressing the timelines to the most important things, to those critical drivers that will ultimately result in KPIs. At a high level, that's kind of what needs to be done. And then just having, like Sergey was saying, having the discipline to just show up and train hard daily, and knowing that you're doing those right things. And then when a side project comes on, like, maybe I could rebuild my website, or I could go down this rabbit hole of new technology or this exciting AI thing, being focused and being like, all right, I gotta like do my training, do my KPIs, and then I can go mess with the new shiny object.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love what both y'all said. How fast can I get things done is sort of my expansion on what y'all have said, is challenging myself to take action and pushing myself to, one of the activities that I have for my clients is to set goals. And we set SMART goals. So SMART represents, it's an acronym, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That's what the acronym means. So each goal that you set needs to follow each of those criteria. So I need to do that for myself, but I also need to push myself so that I'm pushing myself to new horizons and taking action on those things, measuring those KPIs daily. And the big takeaway for me this week, not necessarily just in this podcast, but has been to start making traction. I don't have to have that perfect situation with those perfect clients and charge the perfect rates. And it doesn't have to be perfect right away. I need to start getting business and making traction on that business. So what do I have that's unique and that I can sell, and who can I sell it to? And it, I may have to give some of my time away. I may have to sell my services for less than I want to charge for them right away, and, to get some of those case studies, to get some of that social proof that's so important to drive my business further. But that's okay. And I need to do that. And I need to keep getting business and doing business, because if you're just doing biz dev and nothing but biz dev, and you're not executing on work, and you do that for any extended period of time, then it's gonna dry up your runway pretty quick. So that's sort of knowledge from my my experiences this last week, encouragement for myself to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I think the one little thing, or maybe not so little, that we didn't touch on, and maybe we don't even have time to get into this, but I just wanted to throw it out here, is that the importance of accountability of some sort, or like I'm not sure if you guys have anything in like you, Ben, mentioned that you have a partner, so I guess that's sort of maybe your accountability to an extent.
Oh, my ex co-founder. He decided to become a W-2 employee, so he kind of left.
I see. So you flying solo these days? So you just
currently flying solo. However, I 100% agree with you that accountability is key, because it's a lot easier to be in denial or not track things if it's only me. It's like who watches the Watchmen sort of thing. So
yeah,
I recently started a group called Business Accountability Group, or Business Accelerator Group, not accountability. I wanted to have accelerator because it's about moving forward. And that is all entirely focused on different business owners coming together and sharing, like, what's our biggest challenge, like, or what's a big win that we had last week, like focusing on what is working. Let's double down on that. Second, what's the biggest challenge that we're facing currently, or that we might need help with? And since it's like a small group, we get to like discuss and collaborate. So if someone's having a challenge in a certain area, we have people who are experienced in different sides, so we can, if say I'm weak in the tech side, there's someone who can say, hey, this tool could help you, or have you tried doing this? Have you tried using Grok? Those sorts of things. And so having that small group, I feel like, is super important, because that's one of the reasons why it's almost easier to work at a company, because you have like a group around you, you have that accountability, and you have like a bit of a structure to work in. But when you're in a fractional, you don't have that structure. It's entirely just like sandbox. And so it creates, you need to have the intention to create that structure somehow. And so that was kind of the reasoning behind me starting that group. So if you want to check it out.
Share, Drew, please share in the show notes. We'll see what Ben is doing out there, but it's great. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely, it's obviously great and been proven that the accountability works, but I feel like maybe a lot of people, when they start now, they just don't have many resources, right? So, but I feel like just going a level deeper to understand maybe like why you're doing what you decide to do. I guess that's like, if you really get to the point of like why, like defining that motivation, I guess, then it's sort of like it can help you to drive you forward, right? So it has to be something authentic, something that you really care about, because a lot of us, like Drew mentioned, I guess in the beginning, we just all want, we want like maybe more money or like freedom, some sort of. But then if you ask those people like, well, so why you need this money? Seem like you have a lot of money already, like you maybe like, why you need time? Why would you want to do like, and a lot of people have no answer for that. So that's also kind of, yes, maybe important, and so maybe it's probably a separate topic for entire discussion, but you just need to have some substance, right?
Yeah. Let's maybe have another podcast episode in the future about accountability and how do we implement that, and what does that look like as fractional leaders. There's lots of resources out there, and lots of opportunities to have that accountability. So more to come on that, audience. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.